something that doesn't depend on that specific technology. You know, the speed, for example, of being able to connect somebody by phone as opposed to having them come into clinic, then you lose the difference. You know, and I wonder if we wouldn't ask the wrong question. If it's telehealth or no, then the question might be cost savings. Whereas if you're going to test the effectiveness in terms of improving health outcomes, maybe they should have focused on something for which the speed of connecting by phone would have been
really
determining factor.
I fully agree, and my comment now, I'm not a cardiologist, but as I understand it, heart failure has a relatively lengthy time course, and it's a serious disease to have. But it is, yes, very chronic, if that isn't yeah. So a disease like asthma, very rapidly changes in brittle asthma, similarly diabetes, and there are other long-term conditions in which we should be focusing our attention more in telehealth, where telehealth is more likely to benefit than in some of these more stable long-term conditions.
I get the feeling that we often, and this is one of the challenges in this business, I think, is having a solid understanding of the comparative advantage delivered by technology.
Yes, or the value proposition.
Exactly.
Dr. Eisenstein was talking about the value proposition yesterday. I think that's a very interesting way of thinking about it. How might this work if it does?
Jeremy, I'm going to be so honest with you anyway. So statistical validation is a good thing. We need to do that one. That is what we should do even when we get the negative effect. However, going back to your escalator example, if you take escalator and the steps, and if you compare your telehealth versus treatment one to number of treatment. Now, are you going to compare the telehealth as a protocol or telehealth as a main effect? If you take telehealth as a main effect, what are the side effects? Are you going to go only a randomized trial? What happens if you're blocking your application? Are you going to experimental design? Which way you go? So it's just a comment rather than question.
It's an interesting comment, thanks. And it's food for thought. And the question is, how do we study telehealth in the future, particularly if we start to regard it as an element of a complex intervention? Unfortunately, there is a very helpful framework for complex interventions which the UK Medical Research Council came up with a few years ago. It's been revised and improved, and it sets out a development and evaluation pathway modelled loosely on the drug evaluation pathway, and gives some very sensible and sage advice from a working group of experienced methodologists and health services researchers as to how you start to formulate and study these complex interventions. Thank you.
Yeah, I was putting on the charge trial. If we had taken some of the context factors of your colleague in Glasgow, is it normally use it in the face of the things that are actually working? So you can look at those factors and maybe get a people who might be willing to use and might be successful on that intervention.
It would be very interesting to see if they have the data to do that. What happened with Christine Button is she realized partway along, quite early on, that some of her patients were really adopting this, and others were unfortunately just not interested, too
We
tired.
found some of the work you can use the cyclosporine called the stages of change theory.
Yes.
And you can apply that on a behavioral intervention up front and predict who will actually be adhering to it.
Yeah, no, that's certainly an interesting thought. We should be looking at people, and maybe it comes down to, as well as selecting the disease, selecting the people. Yeah. Ross.
Yes. Obviously, one danger is picking into the sample those who are susceptible to being helped but don't need the help. In other words, self-motivated and the like.
Yeah.
So we can outsmart ourselves by choosing people who don't need our help because they're the most responsive. Maybe, given the conversation, what we need to choose is the middle ground not those who will ignore you when you call,
Yeah.
not those who don't need the help, but those who are just near the edge
The
of
tipping
being
point.
compliant.
Yeah, the telehealth as a tipping point.
Take that middle third or whatever.
Yeah. That's good, yes, I like that. Sorry, several.
Germany, I'm Karl Strothmann from Bonn in Germany. In Germany, they just finished a similar trial with 800 heart failure patients, and they found also no results. They found only some positive results, which are the depressed heart failure patients. But otherwise, and part of the problem they said there, many of those who were involved, the doctors, were doctors who anyhow treat their patients good. So their hypothesis was, we had in our randomized control trials only those who already look very well after their patients. You see, they reported many of the doctors threw us out, or we don't want to care about telehealth.
Yeah,
And
that's interesting.
another aspect, what I'm missing in all these heart failure studies is, what kind of heart failure patients do you have? We did a randomized controlled trial 10 years ago with John Cleland in Hull. And we are doing another one right now. And we had only high risk, very high risk heart failure patients. We lost 1/3 of our patients in year 1. Extremely deadly. And we extended through telecare by about 25–30% the survival rate. But this meant in reality it were 3–4 months. I mean, you have to put all of this into context. In that study we also used telephone service, and we had more or less the same results with telephone service. And we had another thing in the intervention group, people were more often in the hospital.
Yes.
And they were more often because these were very sick patients, and they came much earlier into the hospital, but could leave the hospital much faster. So I think a lot of variation is not reflected in what is happening here. And I personally believe what you present is a much more intriguing model to really analyze this. Because all these contextual factors, what kind of people, what kind of nurses, what kind of doctors, is so important. But this is, I believe, that these randomized control trials don't bring us very much. We looked in Germany at 14 different telehealth applications similar to these heart failure things. But not one was comparable to the other. So even if you have in each case a randomized control trial, and if you don't take all these context factors into account, you don't know what is really happening. And none of this will scale. I think the scaling up,
Scaling.
you see, and none of this scales. This is a big problem.
That's it. Thank you very much, Carl, for this thought. Very interesting insight about another negative study.
And they spent 10 million Canadian dollars on this.
Very expensive, these studies, but we need to learn from them, talk about them, and move forward, incorporate the insights. I think there are insights coming out of the randomized trials, as they do out of other kinds of studies. So thanks for that. Very helpful. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul Gilmour. A very nice presentation. I've mentioned yesterday also, I like very much the fact that we're removing the guilt from failed trials. Any trial and failed trials bring a lot of knowledge. And I wanted to stress 2 points that you've mentioned that seem very relevant to me at least. One is this notion of self-care that triggers some flags in my research. There is a definition about life brought by Francisco Varela and Umberto Maturana, where life, its main feature is self-production. So anything that can produce itself and self-maintain qualifies as life. And the fact that these telecare programs try to restore this component of self-care, of self-production, get the patient to be active in his or her care, seems to me very relevant according to that definition of life. And autopoiesis, the name of this theory, is part of complexity theory. You've mentioned that we need tools to handle this kind of complexity, a multitude of relations in multiple domains, and so the importance of personal contact versus the component, the medical component. And these tools are a new set of tools that surface in complexity theory. They're surfacing from the social aspects of highly connected societies with communication and so on. And they are tools, in my opinion, related to relational networks, so to structures in which relation is more significant than the actual study of the nodes.
Thank you for that comment. Perhaps just to take that idea a little bit further, and there's also the idea of emergent behaviour.
Yes.
And potentially, once we have large numbers of people with telehealth devices and connectivity, there could be interesting networks of self-support springing up. So not focusing so much on transmitting abnormal results to their responsible clinician, but supporting one another and exchanging their results, and even setting up a small local social competitive network of maybe a dozen friends with diabetes locally, and each week they say, we've got the best improvement in this weight population in the globe. How did you do that? So there's lots of opportunity and potential.
Varela's theory, which was taken by Luckman further, is saying that groups of people become in themselves entities alive. So this kind of support groups that maintain self-production and self-care become structures with their own life. And
very good. Thank you very much. Someone.
I just had a quick.
Abdul.
Do you think the randomized control trial is the right do you think you need different
Do I think the randomized trial is the right thing? Yes and no. Abdul, as you know, it depends on the question. If you're satisfied that you've got an intervention, a telehealth package that's likely to be effective, then it's ready for a randomized trial that you can replicate and roll out for then it's ready to do the randomized trial to find out whether it is, because that's what policymakers need to decide whether they're going to roll it out nationally, internationally, in fact, to scale it up, which, as Carl points out, is the key thing. We've got to find things which we can do and recommend to policymakers, to taxpayers, to our parents, etc. We think on the balance policy is going to help you rather than harm you. So yes, an RCT is the right method for that, but it's not the right method if we're still working on. There's many other evaluation methods covered in my book, 2006, second edition. Many evaluation methods which we could use where there are other questions. So it's not the only method.
Well, you mentioned policymakers. There's great studies that show what works and what doesn't, and I think your talk was great at showing the limitations of some of these studies. But often, a lot of these governments tend to then spend millions or billions of dollars without actually consulting the academic community or without it.
Yeah.
So what can the academic community do so that the great knowledge that your group and other groups are developing gets the proper attention, because it's very easy for them to either cherry pick certain studies and say, no, we're not going to invest in telehealth because there's an example of failure, or they implemented policy. So what is your group's relation to national investments in government, and what would you suggest we should do better to communicate with our government?
Well, a year ago, I was planning to go back to NICE, to my friends there. I worked at NICE for 3.5 years, and say, let's do a technology appraisal on telehealth. Because I'm confident it was going to come out in favor. Now I'm not so sure. And I think that actually, again, while I was at NICE, one of my responsibilities was to look at some of the problems